Abe started off as a very much an avatar for me, and as the writing went on, he became more of his own beast. Um, as far as Butch Billings goes, he was one of the suggestions when it was in novella form. Uh, One of the writers in the group suggested I add a healer, which I was like, oh god, a native healer. That's such a trope. It really, I was like, oh yeah, yeah, great idea. And then I remembered that I have a healer in the family. He's my great uncle, uh, whose name is his nickname isn't Budge, it's Butch. That's Lewis Burning Sky Butch Connors. And I'd seen him in action and was like, oh, what if these two get together? So I don't know Butch all that well. Like I've only met him a few times because he's on a side of a family that we're kind of more estranged from. But he's kind of based on him and based a little bit on my uncle who did the artwork for the cover. When it was in a novella form, I had it in my mind that anything that I was writing and calling fiction could not have anything to do with reality. So he, instead of being a bookseller and living in Miami, he sold insurance and he lived in Tampa. He was single. Um, there were just all these little things that I kind of pulled away from reality because I felt like in that way, only in that way could I then call this a piece of fiction. And one of the women in the writers group, she's just said, "This is holding you back. Put him in Miami, put him at Books and Books. Give him his wife. Like just hit the gas and keep going." And so once I had my own life as the template and the bones of it, obviously that became a lot easier because it was just kind of following what actually happened, maybe tweaking it here and there to make it more cinematic. Um, and as I was doing that, I had this image in my head, and it was of Uncle Budge, and I think he was hitting a home run, and he was surrounded by smoke. I couldn't tell where he was. I couldn't tell what was in his hands, and exactly what was going on. But as when that I got that image, I started to write towards that more than what had actually happened. And there were a lot of holes in my life. And then that was how the book kind of got filled in with a lot more, made up, made up happenings, a lot more fiction. And it really took off when the narrator Dominic showed up. I was playing with first person versus third person because the first person was a lot more. It was angry and scared, like I said, and a lot of that um, anger at myself for what I thought was, procrastination. And as I have a full time job, I have a family. Like it's not like I was doing nothing, but even though I was waking up at 5 and writing and pushing it, it was like sometimes I would wake up at 5 and just read, or I would binge watch Netflix or whatever, So every time that happened, I just had a lot of anger towards myself for that, and a lot of that came out in when Abe hit the page because he's also struggling with his gift, trying to be a poet, and he's procrastinated all this time, and this disease is coming along to take the choice away from him. And one of the authors suggested I do third person to see what that unlocked. And then another writers group that I was in, they felt like it lost a lot of the urgency when I made that switch. So I tried to think about how I could kind of have my cake and eat it too. And I don't really know where Dominic Deerwoods came from. He just kind of showed up as I did not know who was telling the story at first, but there was something about my mother being born and raised on the res and me not, but my protagonist being that I kind of translated into Abe has been away from the res since the 90s, and Dominic is more of an authentic voice. So it was kind of calling him out. He also had a lot more empathy and sympathy for Abe than Abe had for himself. And so a lot of the, even though he was angry about a lot of the same things, he approached it with more humor. He understood Abe a lot better than Abe understood himself. And I mean, thank God he showed up, because it was a 10-year process. And if I had to just spend it with Abe and his anger and self pity, I don't know if I would have made it to the finish line. Whereas Dominic was kind of like, you know, a wink and a hug and a like, let's link arms and just kind of get where we need to go. I'm definitely a pantser, not a plotter. So I feel like if I knew where it ended, I would have gotten bored and not finished it. So a lot of the stories that came up were a surprise to me. Some of them are made up whole cloth. Some of them come from research and just uh, maybe not active research, but more as you leave the res and you want to just kind of keep that connection that visiting and going home doesn't always necessarily give you. So you read a lot, and just that's my little, you know, native interest, I guess, bookshelf that's there. So some of it comes from that. Um, but I feel like every story that gets told in the book is in service to Abe learning something. It's part of his journey. So if Budge is going to tell him something about history, or if his mother is going to tell him something about his uncle, then it's all kind of in service to Abe going on his healing journey.